You're listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA+ stories, a podcast that celebrates the wisdom, courage, experience, and joy of individuals in the queer community. Every week, we feature a guest who has a remarkable story to tell about their coming out and the life they've lived beyond. Now here's your host, Anne-Marie Zanzal.
Hi, this is Anne-Marie Zanzal here, and welcome back to the last episode of 2024 of Coming Out and Beyond. And I am so excited today because my conversation partner is Barb Rowlandson, the producer of the show. Hey, Barb, how are you?
Hey, Anne-Marie. Wow, we have accomplished a lot this year.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And so Barb and I have decided that we really want to talk about some of the highlights of the episodes that we've had in the last year. So if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to all of them, we're going to point you in the right direction for who you should listen to, because we have had some amazing guests this year.
Anne-Marie, this is like Sophie's Choice. This is not fair. I get to edit every single one of these podcasts. I think there's been like 40 or so this year, maybe more.
Well, we did every week. And so we've had 60 this year because we did 4 in February. Remember?
Yeah, that's right.
We love you for Valentine's Day.
Yes.
And we did 4 podcasts. So this has been our most prolific year ever. And when we get a little later in this conversation, we did a second podcast this year called Queer Business Success. So Barb and also towards the end, when she couldn't do any more, my wife Tanda, who started editing the podcast,
like, please get help.
I think this year we have put out probably 100+ podcasts, which I think is amazing, because we also did the podcast for Queer Business Success, our second podcast that we have started for the LGBTQIA+ community. So Barb, raise your hand, put it over your back. And
we did it! And that just brings my heart joy, because especially I love Coming Out and Beyond. Obviously, it's your flagship podcast. It tells amazing stories of people who have done amazing things with their lives since coming out. But queer business success, it really celebrates queer business owners and gives them the visibility that they might not otherwise get. Yes. And that's why I love it. I think it's just such a brilliant project, and people are lining up to be on that podcast, which is so exciting.
We are having a lot of people on that podcast. So if you have, and what was really cool is that we launched that podcast in September, and we got 45 5-star reviews, which I am so incredibly proud of the work we did to get those reviews. And hey, by the way, if you love Coming Out and Beyond and it's something that you listen to every week, can you please go give us some reviews on Apple? It'd be really amazing if you did that, because we want this word to get out that we have this podcast for people coming out later in life, but actually people that are just in the queer community. Some of our guests have come out later in life, some of them haven't, but everybody tells their coming out story, because yes, there's a coming out story, and yes, there is a beyond. So
absolutely. And I just have to say, and we could cut this out if you want, but so as the kids say, smash that like button. And smash that subscribe button, and I subscribe to it. So of course, when I'm in the car and I'm driving and I'm listening to podcasts, and when you finish listening to a podcast, that rolls over to the next one you subscribe to. So quite frequently I'm driving along, and then I hear my own voice pop up on the radio because I do the intro, and I'm like, this is so weird.
It is weird. And what's really weird for me is that because people listen to this podcast, and as everyone, as I do each one, I sprinkle a little bit about my own life, and that people come up to me and meet me for the first time, and they know all about me. And that sort of freaks me out a little bit, but that's okay. That's the price of visibility, right?
Yes, that's right.
People get to
That's
know
right.
you. So let's talk about some of your most were some of your favorite podcasts this year from coming out and beyond?
No fair. That is such a hard question. I mean, it is such a hard question. It's like edit every one of them. And when I email all of the podcast guests to say, hey, your podcast episode is dropping this week. For pretty much all of them, I say, I really enjoyed editing this podcast and thank you so
Yes.
much. And I genuinely mean it every time.
Mhm.
Your guests are so good and they really, share very transparently with you, which
Mhm.
is maybe a testament to your interviewing skills as well, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
That people feel comfortable enough to share such intimate and or maybe a little more hidden corners of their real lives.
Well, I
So
think that's because like my background is in chaplaincy, and so I've been
yeah,
trained to listen to people. And
yeah.
I think one of the things that people do in podcasts, some of the mistakes they made is they talk about they overrun their guests. So they have somebody
Mhm.
on the show and then the host spends most of the time talking. And
Right.
so one of the things that I really try to do, and I don't do it perfectly, it's a practice. Sometimes I
Sure.
can talk too much, but one of the things I like to do is give my guests space to speak.
Yes.
So I just keep my mouth shut and I listen. And if you give
Yep.
people enough room, they will be able to share their story. If you keep interrupting them and
Mhm.
sharing all of your own, then they just feel less and less comfortable. Um,
Agreed.
for my other podcast, Queer Business Success, my first guest was Krista Supin, who
Yeah.
is, excuse me, I said the last name wrong, Supan. She's the owner of the Lipstick Lounge here in Nashville. And after we got done, she texted me and said, "Oh my God, that's the best interview I've ever done in my life." That made me
Oh,
feel so comfortable. And I
that's
was really,
awesome.
really touched that she said that because Krista has one of the last remaining lesbian bars, or those
Mhm.
more that are opening up, but it is an institution in the queer community here in
Mhm.
Nashville. And
Mhm.
so to have Krista say that to me felt really, really nice. So I really appreciated that.
Well,
But
and Krista's story was such a testament to her staying power as a
yes,
business owner. I mean, she's been in business for what,
20
30,
plus years,
yeah,
20
yeah,
plus
20,
years.
30
Yeah.
years, and
Mhm.
has had a bar and restaurant business that survived COVID. I mean, really,
Well,
their resiliency is remarkable.
Well, this is the thing is that in 2020 of March 2020, Nashville had a tornado and it hit her building. So she had a tornado and then they shut down for COVID 2 weeks later.
Hmm.
And she kept this restaurant bar open, which is amazing, and paid her staff through COVID, which
Yeah.
I mean, he have EIDL here in the United States, but she applied for it. She got it for her
Hmm.
staff and
Hmm.
everything like that. And
Hmm.
so to keep a lesbian bar open, because lesbians just want to go home and watch TV for 20 years.
Yeah, although it's worth making the trip to the Lipstick Lounge, I gotta say.
Yes, Barb came here a couple weeks ago for the first
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
And well, no, not first time she's gone to the Lipstick Lounge, not to Nashville, and she had a great time.
I
So, yeah,
surely did. It is worth
yeah.
the trip. Please go visit the Lipstick Lounge if you are so inclined to have a good time, listen to live music, and everything about it was just so, so fun. And I think that episode in particularly has a good message for business owners,
Right.
about
And
how to run your business with care and
mhm,
love for your staff too. She really loves her staff.
absolutely. And that's the first episode of Queer Business Success. And that was my bad. I should have waited and talked about that one later, but we were somehow on the subject. So let's talk about coming out beyond. Hey, Anne-Marie Zanzal and Barb Rowlandson here. We are so excited to invite you to our upcoming workshop in January of 2024.
This is all about things that you absolutely must know before you come out later in life. And it's for women who are cis or trans or non-binary people who are comfortable in women's spaces.
If you'd like to find out more about it, you can go to comingoutsupport.net. It will be held January 8th through 12th at 12 p.m. Central Time, and it will be recorded. So if you can't come at 12 p.m., you can listen to it later. So go to comingoutssupport.net to find out all the information you need to know. You know, one of my favorite episodes was with Hannah. So Hannah, it was episode number 10 in season 4.
Yes.
So if you are somebody who is unfamiliar with conservative evangelical Christianity, you really should listen to Hannah's story, because Hannah moved from, being fully bought in to that life,
Yeah.
evangelical Christian wife, did a lot of work within the church, even prayed the gay away with some people. And her journey from conservative evangelical Christianity, to coming out as a lesbian was a very, very powerful story.
Oh, for sure. And really gives you an appreciation for how much courage that
Mm-hmm.
it takes to emerge from a conservative faith tradition.
Well, and also too, what really struck me is, I never, I know a lot. I mean, I'm a minister, so I know a lot about conservative faith traditions. But what really struck me about Hannah's story was the oppression of women, and how much the responsibility of everything falls on women. So if your husband
Yes.
isn't happy, it's your fault.
It's your fault. Yeah.
You're not being a good enough wife. And so it began, and the story of conservative Christianity, although a lot of us are not conservative Christians anymore, the story of conservative Christianity has deep roots in the world, because the way those churches still speak is how we spoke hundreds of years ago in all churches. So everything, or all synagogues, everything, is the woman's fault. Original sin is the woman's fault. Yeah. Eve gave
Yeah.
Adam the apple. Somehow, Adam's not responsible, but Eve gave him the apple.
Yeah, she must have made him eat it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's all her fault.
And now all of us women have to pay for it for all time. Yeah. Okay, great. Well, you know what? If we're going to talk about that one side of spirituality and faith and religion, that let's talk about the other side of it and flip over to Linda Moore's episode, because I really learned a lot about spirituality, and it's way on the other end of the spectrum of what Hannah experienced, right?
Right.
And
But Linda grew up in a conservative faith tradition as
well,
well.
she did.
She grew up in the Brethren, which, and in a couple other ones too, and those were very conservative religious traditions. And honestly, with our later in life community, about 80% of them have come out of some conservative
Yeah.
faith tradition, because again, it oppresses women, and then obviously oppresses queer people as well.
Oh, for
So
sure.
yeah.
For
And so what
sure.
did you like about Linda's pod?
Well, I really learned something as somebody who, has never really gone to the side of the woo-woo, as we say. I really feel like I learned something about the nature of the spirituality and the modalities that she practices with energy healing, and how she's really drawn to that. And of course, I've had the pleasure of meeting Linda in person now. And I never put a lot of stock into it, but now that I have met her and I've experienced some of her energy healing techniques, I mean, it really is very impactful. So it just opened up a door of curiosity for me that I'm willing to explore a little bit further.
Another favorite episode of mine is that we had two episodes devoted to lesbian couples therapy. We had Linda and Lisa, who
Linda and
owns the
Lisa,
Lesbian
yeah.
Couple Institute, and they were on episode 15. And then we also had Dr. Robin Saison, who was episode 27, who also talked about lesbian couples, because there are very special needs for lesbian couples. And Did you like those episodes, Barb?
Oh, I absolutely did. And something that I liked about it, like, yes, there are certain truths that I think that are unique to lesbian relationships, but I also think that there are like tropes that aren't necessarily rooted in reality, or maybe only partially rooted in reality, that we just make assumptions about lesbian couples. And they were good at sort of, you know, speaking to those and saying why these things aren't true.
Mhm.
Really, I mean, on a lot of levels, relationships are relationships, right?
Right.
Like love is love and relationships are relationships. And just because, like, one thing, it always gets me is talk about like lesbian bed death.
Mhm.
And it's like, why do we have a special term for this? Because I think straight people just call it being tired.
Well, and it's also like there's also something like that they say that lesbians get more attached. In fact, it's like there's something wrong the way lesbian couples are attached to each other and stuff like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
And do you know how many do you know how many straight couples I know that have bed death and sleep in separate rooms and stuff like that? But we
And
call
get
it,
attached quickly.
yeah, and get attached quickly too. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
but because lesbians, because they're two women and
Yeah.
are seen as less than
Hmm.
together, that is one of the reasons why we get like U-hauling, for example.
Hmm.
In the lesbian community, if you're new to this, U-hauling is that two women tend to move in together quickly. But
Yes.
the reality is lots of people move in together quickly. And
Yes.
also, there is also a real patriarchal economic reason why two women move in together. And that
100%.
is because women don't make as much money as men. And
That's right.
so, a lot of times, when you've been dating somebody a month or two and you're like, hey, we're both struggling to survive having an apartment by ourselves, maybe we should move in and combine incomes, And sometimes it's a purely economic reason why people move their relationship faster along than people that have more resources.
I absolutely believe that if you were to do a study between lesbians who moved in together and the timing of it, and a study of people who are maybe economically disadvantaged
Hmm.
in straight couples, you're going to find pretty comparable rates of timing as for
Yes, and
moving.
moving
Like,
in together.
yeah, I really believe that. I don't know if such a study exists, but that is my belief.
Well, they don't study lesbians, so but that's a whole nother issue. So, Barb, I remember we had two episodes featuring Reverend Leela Sinha
Oh,
on
yeah.
our podcast this year, and that was episodes 15 and 16.
Hmm.
And I know that really impacted you a lot. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the there's spirituality. Um, I mean, there were so many topics covered within those two
Hmm.
episodes. It was really there was so much ground covered, and I really felt like they addressed these questions of, first of all, their background in the Church of, was it the Universal?
Yes, Unitarian Universalist.
Universal.
Hmm.
And like, that was completely fascinating. I almost feel like Leela should be a case study.
Yes,
Because they had such a
a
like,
different
it was such,
upbringing.
and really specific to a place and time.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
where there were programs that were really directed towards raising young people with a much broader perspective and a much more inclusive perspective on life. So
Well,
that was really fascinating to me.
Well, what blew me away is that she's a Unitarian Universalist.
Hmm.
She grew up in Connecticut, and I'm from Connecticut as
Hmm.
well. And she told me that the Unitarian Universalists in the 1970s had an inclusive program for their youth, which talked about homosexuality, talked
Yes.
about being gay. And I just wonder, like, if I had gotten messages like that when I was younger, what my life would have been like, that it was okay and you need to go and explore this. And that was some of the messages that Leela got. And
Hmm.
I just was I was really, really surprised about the historical fact of the UU Church being very, very inclusive and also being very affirming of queer
Mhm.
relationships and queer people. And
Mhm.
so Barb and I want to give you a toast, the UU Church, for being ahead of the
100%.
curve. I
Yes,
really, really do.
absolutely. And what an
Yeah.
impact it made on their life too. I mean, clearly things that they learned during that very formative period,
Hmm.
like they carried it with them throughout their entire life experiences and gave them a sense of, I think, confidence. Because of course, Leela works with, people who are maybe considered to be very strong-minded,
Hmm.
or maybe even difficult, and coaching those people to in leadership
Hmm.
and saying you're not too much.
Hmm.
um, your strong-mindedness is an asset, it is not a liability.
Hmm.
And having such an upbringing which encouraged individuality, which encouraged difference and saying it's okay to be different,
Hmm.
and they carried that through their entire lives. So that, I think, that speaks volumes to the importance of how we raise young people, for sure.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
speaking of young people, two of my favorite episodes were people who do the same work. John Sovek, he was
Oh,
in season 4, episode 18, and he has written a book about how to help your LGBTQ youth when they come out. It's
yeah.
called it's something's coming out and beyond, I think, is in the title of the book.
Yes, that's right. You
Yeah,
guys
which
have
I
shared
thought,
a
hey,
title a little
John, you
bit.
stole my title. But I really, first of all, John is a wealth of information.
Yes.
He has been working, and he's also has a lot of credentials. Like, I remember when I was reading his bio in the beginning of the show, it just went on and on and on and
Yes.
on. And
Yeah,
John is
very credentialed.
John is a therapist, and he helps LGBTQ youth come out. And
Mhm.
I was just really amazed by his work, and
Mhm.
also so many of the things he taught me some things. So, for example,
Mhm.
in our later in life community, we always talk about our second adolescence, right?
Mhm.
And my argument is that's actually a first, because we haven't had a first. We didn't have the first adolescence the first time around,
We could
because
argue that, yeah.
yeah, many of us were just trying to fit in. And a lot of us laugh and talk about how we just didn't understand why our friends were so crazy about boys, and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And actually told me that there has been studies that talk about when people come out later in life, it's a documented thing. They go through what is called a adolescent period, and where you
Yeah.
make a lot of decisions based on all the wonderful feelings going on in your body versus all the logical feelings that are going in your mind. And
Yes.
both Barb and I have
Yes. Testify,
experienced.
testify, testify.
Yeah, we can. We've had our adolescent period. Now, it doesn't run for like 3 or 4 years like it does when you're a teenager. It's more like a
Right.
year.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it is a powerful thing.
For sure. And I agree. Learned a lot from John. Um, and I also think it is a very, very good episode to listen to if you ever want to write a book.
Hmm.
He gives so much good information about the process of writing a book, because he was promoting his book, right?
Hmm.
And things that you might not ever consider or like even think of when you're
Hmm.
on the outset of the process of writing a book. So if you are somebody who aspires to be an author, I would listen to John's episodes for sure.
Absolutely. And so this is one of the things of the universe works in a very interesting way. So I don't know if I've told you this or not, but so John and I were talking after the podcast.
Mm.
He said, "Oh, I lived in Nashville for a while." And I said, "Oh, what did you do?" And of course, he's a gay man. He was a theater guy.
Of course.
uh,
Okay.
and so he worked at Opryland as a performer at Opryland here in Nashville.
Oh,
And I
fun.
noticed he was the same age, about the same age range. And I said, "Do you know Mark Smith?" Now, Mark Smith is my wife's cousin, and he's also a gay man, and he worked at Opryland. Guess what? John
No.
are really good friends. In fact, they both live in California now. They still keep each other in touch with each other. And
Oh,
right after the episode, I texted Mark, John texted Mark, Mark texted me back, and I'm like, "Oh my God, I interviewed a friend of yours from their growing up days when they were both here in their early 20s in Nashville working at Opryland." So it was like such an instant connection with John. And he said, he's married to his husband and
yeah.
they live very close to LA. I can't remember where. I think it's Pasadena. And he said, next time you come to see Mark, text me and we'll go out to dinner. So,
Oh, I love
you
that.
know,
So not only do you have you had an awesome podcast guest, but you made a new friend. I love
yeah,
that.
I made a new friend, which is
Oh,
nice.
that's
And
so
then
cool.
And then the next person on our show was Jennifer Boudry, and she works with parents who are coming
Yes.
out later, she works with parents whose kids have come out because a lot of
Hmm.
times parents struggle with this information, whether their kids are gay or they're trans. She helps parents navigate this. And Jennifer is just such a loving and kind
Hmm.
woman. She is a fierce ally and
Yes.
she has two queer kids. And so she
Yes.
helps other, parents accept their queer children. And so I really loved that episode and getting to talk with Jennifer. And also, I do business coaching now. And so Jennifer is one of my clients.
Oh,
So,
amazing.
yeah, so Jennifer became one of my clients and
Yay.
started working with me through Purposeful Empowerment, which is my business coaching program. And we're helping her. She's actually going to be, she's in the process of setting up a website called, what is it going to be called? It's going to be, Queer Camp Fair. And so she is getting all the summer camps that are open and affirming to queer children so parents can have a resource and see where it's good to send their queer kid.
Oh,
That will be completely free
oh, I
to
love that.
that's what Jennifer, Barb has a trans daughter, so I'm sure back in the day you would have loved to have a resource.
Oh my gosh. And you see, this is why this is a thing that I love about the podcast too,
Mhm.
because you are inclusive of allies. And
Mhm.
this is a really great example
Mhm.
of allyship and what it
Mhm.
should look like. And I'm so delighted to hear that she's in your coaching program because this kind of work is really badly needed in a climate where trans people are like the straw man
Yeah,
and taking a beating for being, the menace to society, which of course they are not, and diverting people from real issues. And we really need safe spaces more than ever for trans people in general, but for trans youth. Like
absolutely.
such important work. So I'm so glad she's working with you to be able to accelerate her business so that she can get it rolling faster because we need it.
So interestingly, our most popular episodes were with Cassandra Jones. It's
Oh, yes.
we
It's
talked.
almost like, taking the Playboy and reading it in the closet.
But our most downloaded episodes were with
Yeah.
Cassandra Jones because Cassandra is a coach. She coaches people who are living who are polyamorous,
Yeah.
and she helps them to define ethical boundaries and stuff like that. And so that episode was popular. People were like, "Oh, this is so needed because I need help to do this. I'm not sure how to do this." And
Mhm.
so that was a great episode. But then as Cassandra and I started talking, I realized she also was started talking a lot about kink.
Mm.
And I was like, well, I've never had anybody on the podcast before that
Let's do it.
just discussed kink. And
Mhm.
so Cassandra came on in that episode, and that's probably our most downloaded episode
Yep.
ever.
Well, people are genuinely interested and
And
nobody talks about it.
and they're curious, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I know I learned. I learned
Yeah.
because I'm not a polyamorous person and I'm not a part of the kink community, but I think what I my takeaway from those episodes were just how much ethics are involved
Right.
and how ethically like ethics are sort of at the root of being a participant in these kinds
Mm.
of relationships, and talking about consent, good communication, establishing boundaries, and how empowering, especially with the kink episode, is like how empowering it is for people. So although it's not my cup of tea,
Mhm.
I really, I think what Cassandra did was really help to destigmatize um, kink community,
Right.
and also just really serve to inform us and educate us
Mhm.
about polyamory and what that really is and what it looks like and what it is not. And same for the kink community. So I really appreciated that from her.
And it was also she, she confirmed my suspicions.
Hmm.
I was always like, she was very, we talked about it on the episode, is that if you're in a marriage that is not working out for you, polyamory is not the solution. Talked a
Yes.
lot about how sometimes people start to practice polyamory in an effort to save something, and or either have an open relationship, and that is not it. She, basically, she was, I always believe this, but she was like, it's not going to work. People
Hmm.
have to, I often find that if you're in a monogamous relationship and you move to polyamory, that's just really a temporary thing.
Yeah.
And she really confirmed that. And there, actually, I can't remember the word, but she even called it, she had a phrase for it. Because
Yes.
there are people that go to polyamory because they think it's going to save their marriage. And she's
Yes.
like, it, and that is also problematic for people who are truly polyamorous.
Hmm.
And, and again, I think that someone who's truly polyamorous can spot couples that are like that. Like, Barb
Hmm.
and I are lesbians, so we always joke about people, looking for the unicorn, which is when
Right.
straight couples are like on either on dating apps or come into Lipstick Lounge, you can spot them a mile away.
Hmm.
And they are looking for that lesbian that will sleep with a man and a woman
Right.
together. So I think people who are ethical practitioners of polyamory know when somebody is looking to just either have an experience, a sexual experience, or are looking to try to save their marriage or something
Hmm.
like that. And so,
Hmm.
I was really happy that Cassandra, who is a licensed therapist and has
Hmm.
her master's in therapy, really confirmed that for me.
Oh,
So
for sure. And I think, it really points our minds to the idea that polyamory is an orientation.
it is
Just
an
as,
orientation. And
yeah,
after talking Cassandra, I totally believe that.
I
And also
believe it too.
Leela practices polyamory as well. And
Hmm.
after having them on my show, it is an orientation. It is not I'm so monogamous that like it's not my orientation, but for some people it is. And
Hmm.
I like, it is not my journey. I I'm not, it's not something I'm going to practice. But if that is your orientation, you should be able to practice, you should be able to have your journey through life, however it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So,
So, in the beginning of the year, I mean, in the middle of the year, we launched a new podcast. Did
we
I,
did.
before we go, is there any other episodes you want to mention, or are you good?
Um, One that really impacted me um was Frank McGowan's story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I originally recorded Frank for Queer Business Success.
Hmm.
And after I got done, I realized his story was so traumatic
Yeah.
that it wasn't appropriate for QBS. And so
No.
we moved it over to coming out and beyond with Frank's permission.
Hmm.
And it was just so, we even actually had a trauma warning for it
Yes.
because he experienced a lot of violence in his youth. He's from
Yes.
Edinburgh, Scotland,
Hmm.
and he's a TV producer now. and he experienced a lot of violence in his youth and talked about it openly with me on QBS.
He did, and I think again, a testimony to resilience, and also the really important takeaway from Frank's story again is just how important it is to support queer youth, and that even if you just have one supportive adult in a queer youth's life, as his mother was
His mother was
to
his
him, and
supporter,
I
yeah.
just loved the stories about his mother and how she would like sneak gay men and drag queens in to like, you know, do their makeup and selling Avon and all that sort of thing. And it all it takes is one supportive adult in a queer youth's life to change the trajectory of their life. And I guess that is kind of a recurring theme
Right.
within the podcast, is we've seen so many guests talk about supporting queer youth and trans youth. So I felt that Frank's story was especially poignant, and I appreciate how transparent and open he was about the difficulties of his journey, and that must have been difficult to share. So I would encourage you to listen, but definitely know that you're going to hear some heavy stuff in that one.
Absolutely. And, you know, also Frank's story is about community, because he
Yes.
has a very thriving community in Edinburgh, Scotland. And I think it's also testament to that, about finding community and finding other people who are on similar journeys as you through this world. And so I really loved Frank's episode as well. It's a hard listen though. So you have to be in a good place to listen to it.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
Yeah, and if you've had any trauma in your life around being queer, it may be one that you may want to skip, just because
agree.
it's a hard listen. So now we're going to switch over to
Okay.
QBS, which we
Okay.
call QBS through the rest, but it's Queer Business Success. And so in the middle of the year, okay, so let me tell you the story behind Queer Business Success.
Okay.
So a lot of people find me for my coaching business, my later in life coaching business, through Coming Out and Beyond. And so I have wanted to expand my business and the skills I teach to other entrepreneurs who want to create something for the communities they love. So I started a company called Purposeful Empowerment, and I have a business partner who's Anna Empey. She's another lesbian that I work with, and she is a web designer and a branding expert. And so Anna and I got together and we started Purposeful Empowerment. And this is to empower other LGBTQIA plus entrepreneurs like myself to create support and services for the communities they love. It has been a heck of a year with that. It has been a lot of, it's a new business, lots of ups and downs, lots of learning curves. I do have clients in it, and I'm super excited that we're growing and expanding. If you want to hear about what Anna and I teach, you can go on to my YouTube and watch all the episodes that Anna and I talk about. But I started this podcast because I want to support other LGBTQ entrepreneurs and allies and their businesses, and help them tell their business stories, and also help them inspire other people. So,
100%. Yeah.
and that, I want to just say, Barb and I I'm going to swear here, we worked our asses off this year.
Yes.
I recorded 80 episodes, and Barb edited a gazillion episodes until she couldn't do it anymore. And my wife, who's a videographer and photographer, took over the editing, at least for Barb, which we took some stuff off. And so we had the opportunity to create something new. And as I said before, super proud that we have 45 5-star reviews on that podcast. And we really, really encourage you to go and listen to Queer Business Success if you haven't already.
Absolutely. And if we're talking about favorite episodes, I just got to throw it in there. I mean, I know I'm maybe a little bit biased because we work together, but there's 2 parts episodes with Anna MP.
Yeah.
And I think Anna's story is really a fantastic one.
Mhm.
Again, emerging from a conservative faith tradition and how
Mhm.
that impacted her mental health, her mindset, how she valued herself, and how she overcame messages that really were oppressive to who she was. And she also shares, especially in part two, a wealth of information about business building,
Mhm.
and particularly how to build a business that is really authentic to who you are. I think, like, both you and Ada add this dimension where it's not just about building a business, like to offer service or to make a profit. Like, she really looks at, like, what is your heart telling you to do,
Mhm.
and what is authentic to you, what is meaningful to you.
Mhm.
And there's almost, I mean, I won't say it's like a spiritual component, but it almost is.
Well, actually, there
Really.
is, because we're really, we believe deeply, like when we teach about business building, we don't start with what you're going to do. We start with what your core values are,
Core
because we
values,
really
yes.
want to align you with what you believe in. So, for example, one of my core values is community. And
Hmm.
so everything I do is about building community. And that will probably, when I retire in 10 years from now,
You'll still be building community
I
somewhere.
will be building, but it'll be a pickleball
I
court.
was just gonna say it's gonna be a pickleball community.
Actually, as we've been taping this episode, my pickleball league is texting each other and saying, "Hey, do you want to play today?" And I saw my wife text, and it says, "No, we're having a big Christmas cart party tomorrow night for our chosen family, so we're like in
Aw,
party planning prep, so we're not having anybody."
got it.
But there was one of my favorite episodes, actually, and my wife too loved this episode when she edited it. And Lizzie Kurtzer, the episode about our periods as women
Mm,
and how much they affect us. It is what was one of the most interesting and powerful episodes. It's the most recent one. I don't think we number our episodes, but again, her name is Lizzie Kurtzer, and she talks about the period, our
yeah.
periods and how they affect us, and
Hmm.
also makes us about our menstrual cycles. And she actually does this to corporations. And so
It's
I was
amazing.
like, oh my gosh, girl, you go.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's so fantastic. I love that episode. And another one, I'm going to throw in another one of my favorites, and I think it was actually a pretty popular one for you too, for your listeners, was that Stephen Diamond and the Tiger King
Yeah, the Tiger
fame.
King five.
Like, what a story! I mean,
Yes.
no wonder his life was like on a documentary, because it's almost too unbelievable real, or you couldn't, I guess you couldn't make this stuff up, because his life was so different and so remarkable, having been like an illusionist and working with Doc Antle and tigers and going on tour and kind of being a part of a cult, and how he escaped from that and then went on to have an amazing career and build an amazing business that was stemmed from him overcoming his very severe OCD.
Yeah, absolutely. His I really liked his episode. When I
Hmm.
saw he had been on the Tiger King, I'm like, oh, I have to talk to this guy.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean, it was fascinating,
Mhm.
fascinating story, and also again, like a story of perseverance, of resilience, and overcoming something that's really, really difficult to overcome, and not only just overcoming it for himself, but helping so many other people who suffer from this condition. And really, that's kind of at the heart of purposeful empowerment too, right? Like,
Mhm.
the people who are attracted to you, who you end up working with, are really people who want to make the world a better place with the
Absolutely.
services that they provide, right?
Absolutely. And another episode that I really liked was with Jack Ori. He is
Oh
a
yeah.
trans man, and I've actually gotten to speak with Jack several times. He is one of the
Uh-huh.
sweetest guys I have ever met. And he is neurotypical. I mean, no, that's the wrong word. Neurodivergent. He is neurodivergent, and he helps other neurodivergent folks write their stories and to become visible on the internet. And I feel like, man, Jack, you are an amazing human being.
Oh,
And
he is.
so
Yeah.
I really liked what he does. And he also coaches people how to write their memoirs and gives them space, because when you are not neurotypical or neurodivergent, when you are neurodivergent, the way your brain works and how you're supposed to do something doesn't fit the mold that we're told like how John Sovic writes his book, where he would sit down and do 3 hours every day. Someone who is neurodivergent probably can't do that. And so, I love how he really coaches people how to use their brain to write the things they need to write that suits their values and their needs. So I really love Jack's take on that. And then I want to mention Laura Nichols as well. She was in my coaching program, Purposeful Empowerment. And in the episode, we called her a transition coach. She actually calls herself the queen of the pivot now.
Okay. I like that.
When you are in business as an entrepreneur, things change over time, and you change your business. And as you can hear from what we're talking about today, I've changed my business and
Sure.
added another opportunity to work with people. And so Laura, really realized, her expertise is helping people go through change. And so she has, if you follow her, she also does notes from your coach. And so Laura has a couple of different irons in the fire as an entrepreneur, and she gives good, solid advice to people who are going through change and pivots.
Yeah.
So those
Yeah.
were a couple of my favorite
That was
ones.
so good. And I'm just going to throw one more at you.
Okay.
I know that a lot of people who you've interviewed for the podcast and who you end up working with in Purposeful Empowerment are, these are heart-centered entrepreneurs who offer a service. So it's like, therapy, it's like licensed therapists, coaches, things like that. But a really good example of somebody who offers a product and not a service was Maria Alexandra Garcia.
Oh, yes. And she's lovely. Lovely
And
woman.
what a wonderful example of how to take a skill and talent that you have, and hers was in dressmaking.
She did
And
dresses.
yeah, she did. She was in the bridal industry for like a long, long time, right? And to be able to marry that skill with her values to produce a product that is inclusive and beneficial for people. So for those of you, you're going to learn when you listen to the podcast, Maria Alexandra Garcia makes swimwear and athletic wear for that's non-binary and trans people, and is very, very inclusive. And again, at a time when trans people need a lot of support and access to things, even basic things that we don't even think about. Like I can go out and buy a bathing suit and I don't even think about it. Right. But for a trans person, that can be a really difficult experience. And so here she is making a product with her skills and creativity married to her values that help other people. So it's not really just, I mean, of course it is about, people who have services that they can offer, but don't discount if you're a person who has a skill to make an actual product, this could be a good fit as well.
So we've had amazing guests on both podcasts this year, and both Barb and I would love to hear, like, if you go back and listen to some of the episodes that we're talking about, or if you had one that really has stood out for you, we would love to hear about that, because we'd love to let our guests know, because they are people who want to make an impact in this world. And so, like, I'm going to go through and listen to this episode and write down everybody we mentioned, and we're going to send out a little email to everybody and let them know how much they have made an impact on us. So Barb and I want to talk about something that's coming up, very special for our people who are just coming out later in life. We are having a 5-day workshop, January 8th through 12th, and it is called Things You Must Know About Coming Out Later in Life.
Yes.
So Barb and I really love helping our later in life community. Barb has been working with me as as another coach in Lotus Group Coaching, which is my later in life coaching group for
Mhm.
women who are trans, cis, and non-binary folks comfortable in those spaces. And so we are going to be offering a free 5-day workshop on Facebook, January 8th through 12th.
I am really looking forward to this. To being able to it's like an educational series, really,
Right.
right?
It is
Like
an
we're
educational series.
like we're spreading some knowledge that is really badly needed. And I remember when I came out in 2017, and I was 45, and I thought I was the only person in the world to experience this. I really felt alone, and was astonished to learn later on that literally there are legions of us, like thousands of
Thousands,
us,
hundreds of thousands,
thousands who
hundreds of
come out
thousands.
later
Yeah.
in life, especially women, and that in fact you are not alone. And so number one, just to establish that right off the bat, you don't have to go through this experience alone. And I learned a lot of lessons the hard way
Mm-hmm.
coming
Mm-hmm.
out by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of wrong assumptions,
Mm-hmm.
and took a lot of missteps. And if I can help any woman, even one woman, avoid some of the things that I did, um, it's worth it.
Absolutely. And so, one of the things that we want to assure you, if you're somebody who is not out, this is going to be a completely safe space.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't know this, but Facebook has what's called hidden groups, secret and hidden groups. In
Yeah.
fact, I have one. And if you're interested in joining that as a later in life person, later in life women, you are welcome to join that. But we are going to, first of all, have you join the challenge, and then we will be hosting it on a Facebook Live, which will be in a secret group. So you're not going to be able to find it by, putting the search term into the Facebook search term box. The
Mhm.
only way you're going to be able to find this group and to hear the information that we're going to be giving you is by signing up at comingoutsupport.net, which
Mhm.
is where we will gather you all together, and then we're going to put you into the Facebook group, and that's where we will have the live. Okay.
And we should emphasize too, not only would you not be able to find it just with a search, the people on your friends list on Facebook
Will
will
not
not be
know.
able to, they will not be able to see that you're participating in this. It is completely private and invisible to the rest of Facebook unless you are actually a member of that group.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's going to be where we're going to be hosting this event. And so we're going to be talking about what Barb and I have seen to be the most common questions that we get in Lotus Group coaching.
Mhm.
So the first question is, I don't think I'm straight, or I am not as straight as I thought I was. And so
Mhm.
a lot of times people begin their questioning journey with, hey, I may not be straight. And honestly, when Barb and I start working with people on Lotus Group coaching, literally, this is where we can start.
Yeah.
I think I possibly may not be straight.
Mhm.
That is it. You do not have to have a label. You do not have to be anywhere on this journey except maybe questioning. And
Mhm.
so we will give a lot of good information on the first day about thinking about that. We'll talk a little bit about conditioning and also what is called internalized homophobia. And so we'll give you some really solid information to help you start thinking about this in other ways than
Yeah.
through what we call the heteronormative paradigm.
And
So,
hopefully you'll feel validated at the
yes,
end of
you'll
that
feel
lesson.
validated about your experiences.
Yes.
The second day, we'll be talking about the catalyst. Now, a catalyst can be a human being that you all of a sudden have a relationship with and you realize that you are not straight.
Yep.
Or it can be a major life event. A lot of people realize stuff about their sexual orientation or their gender orientation after they have had a catalytic life event, like a
Sure.
divorce, someone has died. A lot of people come out after mom or dad dies, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to talk about a catalyst, and Barb's going to talk about the other kind of catalyst.
Well, sure, sure. And we should mention too, like a major illness. A lot of people, we've seen this in our group. A lot of people will come out after
Cancer
overcoming a major,
diagnosis,
yeah, exactly.
brain tumors, stuff like that. Yes.
All of that kind of stuff. So, but quite often when we talk about catalysts in this community, what we mean for a lot of the time is, a person. And a lot of women, so many women who come to us in the program, it's as a result of falling in love with a woman later in life and not expecting that to happen. And what does that mean for me?
Mm-hmm.
What
And
does that mean about me?
And
Right?
we have women who have a catalyst relationship and it turns disastrous. And
Yes.
we have women who have a catalyst relationship and they're together. And, how do I navigate being in a queer relationship with another woman when I've only lived in straight relationships? How does that affect my life? How does that affect my world? And
Mm-hmm.
often too, that leads them to day 3, which is we're going to talk about divorce and children. That
Mm-hmm.
is probably, most of the people come to Lotus Group coaching with the first 2 things. And really, a lot of our work is around divorcing and children
Mm-hmm.
because there is a big narrative in the world about how divorce is bad. And
Yeah.
so we want to help you reframe that, right, Barb?
Absolutely. A lot of women come to us and they are so worried about destroying other people's lives by making this change. And what we do is help you reframe that so that, are you really destroying things or are you just changing them?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
yeah.
And we also talk about kids. And Barb and I both have children. A lot of people in our group has children anywhere from 3 to 33.
Yep.
And so we really talk about the impact of us coming out later in life on our kids. And we also talk about strategies. We talk about how to talk to them about all of this. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're really going to spend these workshops could be 5 hours long. It will be an hour or so, less than an hour. So you'll just get a little taste of what we talk about.
Yeah.
But we will give you some solid advice about divorce and children.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to talk about something that is really true in our later in life community on day 4, and that is about grief.
Yeah.
Grief is the intellectual, physical, emotional and spiritual response to loss. And in our later in life community, there is a lot of loss. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times people don't recognize it as grief because they assume grief is about something that is dying or has died. But there is a lot of loss and change when people come out later in life. So we talk about grief, even though that's not anybody's favorite topic, to really inform you so that when you're
Mm-hmm.
having all kinds of emotions that are absolutely all over the place, we normalize this experience.
For sure. And I don't think there's anybody better to tackle the subject of grief than you, and especially associated coming out with later in life. I mean, you're a freaking grief counselor.
I am a grief counselor and I was a
So,
hospice chaplain for years.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
And
know a lot about grief. And
yeah.
I'm just going to tell you, if you're listening to this and you're a therapist and or anybody in the helping professions, it took me 6 months into my own coming out before I realized I was grieving.
Mm-hmm.
I just like one day I like had this aha moment when I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm grieving.
I'm grieving.
I
Yes.
had a lot of loss and change that happened.
Yeah. And
And so go
yeah,
ahead, Barb.
if you are in a place where you're experiencing heavy grief, as a result of sort of awakening to your sexuality, I really, really want you to sign up for this course because this
Yes,
is
absolutely.
not something that you should be navigating alone.
No, absolutely not. And because this community on Facebook will be secret and private and hidden, you will have other women in that group that, you never know, because a lot of times when you get a group of women together, a lot of times great things happen because they tend to be very supportive of each other. And so that group will be available for you for the week that we're doing this educational piece, or probably 2 weeks total, where you'll have opportunity to meet other women and see other women's responses to all the
Sure.
subjects we're talking about. And then we're not going to leave you on a down note. We're going to talk about community and joy. The
Mhm.
last day on Friday, there is a lot of joy in this coming out process. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not feeling any joy. Well, we're here to tell you we have a lot of ideas about joy and approaching that.
Yeah.
And also we have a lot of ideas about finding community and how you can find community when you're coming out later in life, which is one of the number one things that that is the number one thing you should do if you're coming out later in life, is to find
Mhm.
community.
Mhm. And if you're somebody who is experiencing grief again, you're really going to want to hang in to day 5.
Mhm.
I really encourage you to attend every day, because you're going to learn something every day. But hang in till day 5, because you might be feeling, if you are in the depths of grief and really struggling as a result of these big changes and realizations in your life, and the grief can be so heavy. I
Mhm.
want to assure you that it doesn't stay that way.
Right.
It doesn't stay
Absolutely.
that way. There
Yeah.
is joy on the other side of coming out.
Mhm.
There are so many good things waiting ahead for you. You may not be able to see what those are yet, and that's something we can help you see.
Absolutely. So this will be held January 8th through 12th on Facebook. It's what is it? Things you must know about coming out later in life. And
Mhm.
as I said, it's January 8th through 12th. It is a Facebook Live. It is absolutely free. It is at 12 p.m. Central Time. Every episode will be taped. So if you can't be there at 12 p.m. Central Time, um, that is okay. You can watch them at your own time. It's nice if you can attend, because then you can ask your questions and stuff while we are live.
Mhm.
And you can sign up for this at comingoutssupport.net. And also you can reach out to Barb or myself
Mhm.
at support at AnneMarieZanzal.com if you have any questions. So please sign up. And we're really excited about our upcoming year in 2024. We want to let you know that we're going to have Coming Out and Beyond stories on Fridays, as usual. We are
Mhm.
now going to go to weekly podcasts. I think I misspoke in the beginning and said that we were already doing weekly. We were doing every other week
Right.
before in season 4, but season 5 we're going to be doing 2 podcasts a week. On Mondays, we're going to be focusing on businesses. We're going to be focusing on queer businesses and what they have to offer to the community. And on Fridays, we're going to have community stories. And we will also always be featuring people who come out later in life and have their stories as well. So you have
Mhm.
now two opportunities to hear Coming Out and Beyond Queer Business Success on Mondays and Fridays. And we're so excited to have you listening. And we're so excited to put out some great content for you.
Yeah, we're amalgamating these 2 great podcasts. And hey, for if you've been a follower of Queer Business Success, you get the added bonus because we're going to be putting each of these episodes now that going forward onto YouTube, and you haven't had that before.
Right.
So you're going to be able to watch our Monday and Friday episodes on YouTube, but you're also going to be able to access them the way you normally have, which is like through Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and of course, you can always go to AnneMarieZanzal.com to the podcast section and watch them there. And while you're there, maybe you're going to poke around, read a few blog posts, find out some
And
information.
Well, and I'm launching a new podcast, I'm launching a new website on January 1st. It is purposefulempowerment.com. So you will have all my business related, creating business, QBS, Queer Business Success, all that information will be found on my new website called purposefulempowerment.com, because my other website got too weighty and we sort of had to separate the business from the coming out stuff. So now I have two websites. So talk about an entrepreneur. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you, Barb Rowlandson, for all the amazing work you do. I would not be able to do what I do without you. You came into my life 2 years ago, and you have made my life so much better, and you have made hundreds of thousands other people's lives better because of all your production work, all your video editing, all your social media work. You are an amazing woman, and I'm so glad that you came into my life. We want to wish each and every one of you happy holidays. This will be, I think, the last episode of the season, correct? We're going to
yep, it's the last episode of the year.
Of the season. So this will be coming out on, I think it's December 28th, right? 2024 or 2023 on Friday.
December 29th?
9th? Okay, yeah. You're right. It is December 29th. And we want to wish you happy holidays. And we also want to wish you a very, very happy new year. So thank you so much for being our listeners. We love you all, and we'll see you next year.
Happy New Year.
You've been listening to Coming Out and Beyond, LGBTQIA+ stories with Anne-Marie Zanzal. New episodes of the Coming Out and Beyond podcast drop every other Friday. You can tune in at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and at annemariezanzal.com. Be sure to hit subscribe when tuning in so you never miss an episode. And for more resources, articles, videos, and a free downloadable guide for coming out later in life, visit annemariezanzal.com.